operating in all kinds of valleys and up in the mountains and further down. These are all natural fumaroles, and at the moment we don't really see, but they're down at the bottom of the valley or of the plains. There is a village which is called Hveragerði, Hot Spring Gardens. That's what the name means. And first I'd like to point out here, if you look down to the village, which is now on the left hand side, and you go to the left edge of the village, just above the left edge of the village, at the bottom of the slopes here, in the shadow, there you see quite some steamer rising. These geothermal springs here are the result of an earthquake that occurred here in late May 2008. So these geothermal springs are only 5 years old this year. And the village itself also is based on basically the formation of a geothermal spring. About 100 years ago, there occurred some severe earthquakes in this area as well, which do happen around about every 100 years. And the result of those earthquakes were new geothermal springs. At first, people would just dump their garbage in one of these hot springs, but then after a few years, in the late 1920s, Mother Earth returned everything her children had given to her in a single geyser eruption. And people thought, what else could we do with those hot springs? I mean, back then we simply lacked the technique and maybe also a little bit the idea of what to do with the geothermal water. But by that time, the late 1930s, the idea had arisen to make use of that geothermal water for heating purposes. And so these geothermal water springs were harnessed, and greenhouses were built here. So at first this was a colony of greenhouses with a few workers' families living there in between. Nowadays the majority of the inhabitants are no longer vegetable but human. And we have improved the greenhouse technology. Actually, in about half an hour we'll stop